Hey everybody, welcome back to another all-new X's for Show, your premier media response show where we're bringing you some out-of-this-world horror this week. We're going to be covering Alien Romulus, my favorite film franchise of all time. Who am I? Nico Action, Nicoation.
And I'm TK Elemental.
And that makes me your producer, Kevo. You can find me at Kevo Really. Make sure that you like, subscribe, and comment so we know what you want us to cover in the future. But we're big fans of the Alien and to a lesser extent Predator verse around here, and so this was a pretty exciting thing.
Yeah, I love Alien so much. It makes me so happy. And we have some amazing coverage coming your way today. We have 8 hours of coverage coming your way later this week. Going to be so excited to bring that your way. Reclaiming all of our previous coverage of Alien over the years. But so TK, this is your first time getting all alienical with us. So I'd love to know your relationship with the franchise.
My relationship with the franchise is that it used to scare me a lot, and I didn't really get it. I was very much not a fan of 70s and 80s aesthetics in the 90s and into the 2000s. It took me a very long time to appreciate those. And I, for some reason, really latched on to Alien 3, but I didn't really get it because I was still a little young. And then I got really into Alien Resurrection for no reason that makes any sense. And then the thing I really got into is Geiger, and like Geiger art and Geiger aesthetic, and was into Alien as a bastion of that. But I really fell off of anything related. Like, it just wasn't a big franchise for me. I didn't super care. I actually had not seen the original Alien until well after I had watched 3 and Resurrection, and was like partway through high school. And the only other one that I have seen in theaters is Prometheus, which I did not enjoy as much as I would have liked to have enjoyed it. And now I'm just kind of piecemeal working through everything and kind of understanding that, like, this is an enormous franchise. It just hasn't all been traditionally produced the way a lot of big movie franchises have been, and the stuff is in a lot of other places that you don't often get told to look.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where I'm at
Horror
with it.
movie. The second movie is an action movie. The third movie is kind of like a generic 90s schlock movie. And I don't even mean that hatefully, but I do. Resurrection should have been 4 years later, and then it could have been bad of its time instead of being bad of someone else's time. Like, you can't really judge Resurrection because it was trying to be something it couldn't be yet. It just didn't exist. So I give it a pass. It's definitely not the worst in the franchise. The AVPs are a little wacky. They're based on like a comic thing and a toy thing, and then we're all just in for the ride. I to this day like Prometheus, but I like Prometheus the same way I like impossible challenges in video games. Somebody out there gets the trophy, but it's definitely not me. And then Covenant is the worst film in the franchise by a large margin, really an unforgivably large margin, and not just because Jussie Smollett is in it and we're expected to think that he's straight. But the thing that this movie had going for it automatically is that I'm excited about the director. I'm excited about the idea of pulling together canon, because like when you're talking about it, there's at least the 4 audibles. There's the trilogy, the Sea of Sorrows trilogy, and then the unproduced 3 that Audible did. So there's at least 4 core audiobooks. There's the 40th anniversary, 6 shorts. That is actually one of my favorite things in the history of the franchise. 6 incredible short films, 4 incredible short films, but 6 really enjoyable short films. The Isolation TV show made for streaming, that's based on my favorite character in the entirety of the Alien universe, Ripley's daughter, who is my favorite thing in all of canon. There's the unproduced Gibson screenplay for 3, and then there's the director's cut versions of each movie that substantially change the plot of 3 of them. So like, oh, and then there's all of the short movies. Prometheus has 5 shorts. Covenant has 11. Then there's the 4 loose ones that don't go to anything, and there's Bad Eggs, and like there's just so much. Like I can't stop talking about how much Alien I love and how much I've absorbed over the years.
And I think part of what you're even pointing to is, this is already a franchise. Something that you said about why the director said there's no post-credit scene for this is there doesn't really need to be one.
It's called Alien.
And yeah, this is a finite galaxy that exists where these creatures terrorize, and there's so many different stories to tell, and there are already so many iterations and ideas out there that people perhaps don't know as much about. I really like that this drew from elements of so many of the things, like Isolation that you love so much. There was a lot of that in this, and a lot of people might not be as aware of that.
Which blows my mind. Like, I think that, I had a colonial, so I didn't get into Alien until I was 18 years old. The guy that I was dating, but really was tired of talking to, and so I really only wanted to have sex, so we just had to go to Blockbuster, rent something, come back here, have sex, not talk.
Blockbuster was a store.
That. I really needed something. We were out of things to rent, and he was like, have you ever seen Alien? Let's watch it. And I was like, that sounds very stupid.
That still feels so insane to me, that is how you discovered Alien. Like, I can't believe that.
So then he's like trying to make out with me, and I'm like, no, I'm paying attention to this incredible movie, please. And I rented all of them within a week, watched all of them 3 or 4 times within a week. So when I was like 18 and got into the franchise, everybody was into the Colonial Marines guide. Everybody was obsessed with knowing that it's a cow in the producer's cut, because Fincher wouldn't do a director's cut. The producer's cut of 3, it's a cow, not a dog. And so, like,
and it's different somehow,
and it matters, even though the CGI never lines up with either. So, what I thought was really cool is that I'm going to go through it like piece by piece. I want to like say where, like, I mean, literally, I think you can almost go like 5 minutes at a time and say where everything is a really cool tribute to a previous film while being its own thing. I love these dates. The only dates I would really like to add to this list, if it's cool. I just want to point out that my precious Alien Isolation is also in 2137. Oh, it's up to Kevo. You're incredible. Alien Isolation is up there, 2137. Everybody needs to go out and watch it. It's incredible. And, it's one of those things where, like, when you really get into the franchise and you really come to understand, like, what these characters mean to people and how some of us become so attached to them. Amanda Ripley is like truly one of the most fascinating characters in the entire franchise. And there are people who don't understand that she is just as strong as her mother, that she is just as big a hero as her mother, that she has just as much, okay, maybe not just as much canon if you add in all of the audiobooks, but like, Amanda is such a one-of-a-kind character. Isolation was such a record-breaking video game that it received an adaptation of all of its cutscenes remastered in HD and released weekly online. Like, you just don't do that. And so it was, I don't know. I am such a big fan of this entire universe, and I'm really excited to go like 5 minutes by 5 minutes through Romulus and say, this is that, and this is that, because you can. But the thing I do want to say is this movie made me want to go to the movies again. I swear to God, this was so right for, I mean, first of all, the sound design was hateful. It was a little too loud, but I loved it. The visual design was one of the best visuals I've ever seen in my life. The cinematography and the understanding of color composition in this film, I'd really like to pass it to the guy who went to film school, because like, maybe you can help me make sense of all of this. But I don't know what it was, but I felt like I stepped into Final Fantasy VII. Everything about this movie was luscious like a video game to me.
It was, I felt the same way, and it was one of the first things I noticed was, it, and we'll stay spoiler free for a little bit longer, people, but just be prepared. We will be very spoilery with this. So
there do be aliens.
There do be aliens. So I would be prepared in the next 10 to 20 minutes for that to be fully part of it. But right from the get-go, right when we start in Jackson's Landing, the mining colony where our main characters are based, you immediately it is so dark because it is cloud covered. They do not get sunlight. It says literally that some of the data is 0 days of sunlight. That's just how they live. Normally nowadays, what we see far too often is filters of blue and green that just make everything look so dead. And sometimes it's really, somebody did it, like The Matrix did it. People did it 20 years ago.
Did you have that Matrix commercial before the movie?
No, I did not.
It's coming back to theaters for the 25th anniversary in a remastered edition. And I don't recognize the actress who introduced it in the end of the commercial. Perhaps she's from the most recent film, which I've yet to see. But she says, "See it again see it again while it's still fiction."
Okay, girl.
What a fucking tagline to put on the Matrix.
I like it. Yeah,
I thought you would like it. That's what I wanted to share with you.
Yeah, no, I wish I did. We got terrible. We got bad previews, and this has never happened to me in a movie. Interspersed between previews were commercials. Like usually it's all the commercials loaded up, and then it's trailers, and then the movie starts. This was trailer, commercial, trailer, commercial, trailer, commercial, which I've never had.
Long legs.
Hate it so much. Anyway, we start on this planet, and it's like I said, a lot of people use these blue and green, really dark filters just to show you that it's like a dark world. There's no warm colors, there's no hot colors because there's no light, there's no natural light. This film immediately gives you a ton of reds and oranges because they're from fires, they're from siren lights, they're from flashing lights like that, and then you get a lot of natural browns because it's dirt roads. You get grays from the machines. It looks incredibly dark. It looks sad and dreary and uncomfortable. But they didn't just slap a blue filter and low lights on everything.
Supernatural.
Yeah, I mean, so many things to it. It is a really easy shorthand. And if you're working on a budget, if you are a film student, if you're a first timer, I love you for it. That's not your worry. If you are at the level of Alien, if you're at the level of Blockbuster where you can do a lot of color correction, you can spend a lot on filters. It's such lazy storytelling to do this blue and green filter shit. And it was immediately how I knew, like, this guy gives many fucks about how this movie is about to look. And I was in the chair immediately. Like, I was so excited.
I just want to say, speaking of giving many fucks and very excited, Ali Galactic chilling with us versus the Evil Dead, loving it, living it. Also my favorite movie of the year so far. Really so excited and agree, beautifully lit and shot. And TK, it is so vital that you bring up the oranges and the reds.
Yeah.
Because one of the things that when you talk about Alien and you talk about color story and you talk about progressive color story, Alien relies on grays, chromatics, and greens. Black, and white, like the chroma.
That's its flag. Those are its core colors. No matter what, you're getting those, and that's great.
And then with Aliens, you get bursts of yellow. You get bursts of what I would call the hope shades. Into Alien 3, where the confrontational color is very often the stark blackness of the prison. Alien Resurrection uses like that putrid color of blue and green that they managed to get going a lot.
I think it's also the flesh tone of the baby.
And then we keep coming back to these central ideas, these moments. And so as Romulus unfolds and you see whites that I attribute to Prometheus, and you see the blue that I attribute to Covenant. It's just so
before you go further, the white actually is a big thing in every Alien movie because there's always a moment where they get to a white room. They get to this place that is part of a sanitized, clean aspect of capitalism that they cannot get away from.
Aspect of capitalism using Bishop?
And it's always this moment of tension release that wrecks you because it's never good. It's always bad news. But for a moment, visually, you have this breather. You take this deep breath, and then this one had that great thing of. So okay, I said 10 minutes. It's more like 5. This is the first spoiler thing here, folks. So
on it.
Go to the theater, come back, put this on. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. When Rook is explaining to them in the white room that they have, they made this compound, you have that hopeful moment where you think like, okay, like I mean, if you're an Alien person, you know it's not going to be as good as all that. But like in the movie, they're trying to give you a hopeful moment. And then, of course, we all get to see that it is in fact not good news, but they don't get that. They leave, and we're left with that tension in the white room of knowing that the compound is actually really bad news.
Yeah.
And you know, I just that to me, I mean, like there were other moments where I was like, oh, alien reference, but that was the first time that I was like, Fede Alvarez is specifically really trying to be like, I'm making an alien movie, I'm making every alien movie as well.
So if we're gonna just put it on the Kevo, you got something? Go.
No, and I think I don't know that was a flaw of the film so much as it is also a point that we kept noting where it felt like the movie kept being at a place where it was going to end, and then there kept being 10 more minutes.
Yeah,
and that's I think compounded that feeling of it being so many different movies.
And I think there's a lot of stuff in this movie that we'll talk about where you will say, I don't think it was a flaw, but there's a little bit of an eyebrow raise. And it's Prometheus did a lot of the same things, and they were all flops. They were all bad choices that I didn't like and that made the movie worse. This made a lot of those same choices, and they were not always hit it out of the park successes, although you could always see they were intended to be. But for some reason, the choices that Fede Alvarez made felt so much more organic, authentic, and intelligent, even when they didn't quite get there, even when you might have been like, that might have been actually the wrong choice. Something about the way the crew made those choices kind of always charmed you, even if it maybe you would say it was not the correct choice.
Well, and I just want to say, like, as a guy who is literally sitting here in a Wayland Yutani cosplay, I am... What?
I was just saying Wagyu, like they said in the movie.
Yeah, Wagyu, loved it so much. Yeah. I love some good Wagyu beef. The thing that I also thought this movie did better than other Alien movies of the last couple of years is, don't get me wrong, I want to watch Idris Elba sexually confuse Charlize Theron for the rest of my life, but the problem with Ridley Scott's understanding of characters, he's like, but you see that they are flawed is what makes them great. And like, it's what makes me wish they were dead.
What a boomer man perspective on doing characters.
Right? And one of the things I loved about this movie is I did not care about some of these people. I cared about survival. And instead of asking me to care about this horrible man who clearly is anti-synth. Like, I always want to, whenever anybody is like, well, you can understand he has a problem with synths because a synth led to his mother's death. And I just always want to be like, as a gay man, I've never been gay bashed by a gay person. I've only ever had straight people call me faggot hatefully. So do I get to be afraid of all straight people? Because straight people seem to be afraid of every fucking thing that just does not come from their perspective. And so, like, I had no pity for this guy.
And like any horror movie, but most specifically in the Alien ones, you kind of need there to be victims where you're like, yeah, you did it to yourself.
They were teeing him up, and that's, you know, he was a filler queen all the way.
The way it played out for this film was super unique and engaging, and for the most in a long time, for sure.
But also, can we talk about the fact this was the first time I've had this, because I did not have this with Prometheus. These kids are like basically the same age as the Alien cast, who I'm like, oh, those are my parents. Like, even now when I watch it and I'm significantly older than Sigourney Weaver, that's my mom. But I like, these children are on this ship just trying, these like literal babies, but they're 26 to 30, 35, I think is the oldest one. But man, it was wild seeing them. And just, they look like a pack of feral children. And they are really, most of them, not much younger than any of the cast of Alien.
But they are purposely played as younger. One of the things that even
Do you think so?
Yeah, I mean, they literally try to make us think that the Nostromo is a crew of ragged, like, I mean, they are described as ship-weary, hardened, and I believe these are meant to represent young people having their lives taken from them ahead of their time, which is why they put into play that she still feels like, you know, she has to be a parent to a brother that is, and, you know, one of the central tenets that was a little, I think, fascinating in this movie is, you know, she couldn't leave her brother behind, and the sort of conflict of the fact that we don't really get familial relations along the same rank in alien movies. Familial relations in alien movies are usually exploited by taking into consideration the mother and child relationship that the queen automatically has. And even if you remove the queen and you go back to Alien and you think about, Star Beast, you have to think about the idea that the character is designed around the notion of yonic versus phallic contrast. So when you're thinking about how this movie chose to suspend the idea of parental requirement and instead engaged with Rain and Andy as equals, yet somehow unequal, there was an Of Mice and Men component, a kind of Flowers for Algernon meets of Mice and Men sort of 8th grade literature aspect to this, but I feel like we really saw a transformation, and that's what I meant when I was saying earlier that like a lot of the characters I didn't really understand every character's motivation. Oh, that's the pregnant one, that's the fun one, that's the idiot, that's the hot one. It kind of fit into tropism, but in a way that really supported and made the story move faster.
I think you're right. I mean, I think sometimes you really have to make the choice. Like, am I doing a character study here? Do I have time? What am I trying to get through with this film? And if you do not have the time, and if you cannot do it, you are much better off kind of, this is the semi-racist one. This is the gruff pilot. And I think all that really mattered is that Rain ultimately comes off not as a modern day Sigourney Weaver style final girl, but as a final girl who has the same staying power as Sigourney Weaver in her entirely different lane that is all her own. I'll tell you what, I had a real lesbian awakening with this.
Like, you got gay for Rain?
I went heterosexual and then swung all the way around to lesbian gay for Rain.
That's how I feel about Veronica Mars, so I totally understand.
In her boxer shorts with a rifle, just killing shit. I mean, the actor, I can't get over her. I want to make sure I've tweeted her name a bunch of times.
Yeah, I want to say her name is Calligraphy Space Hog. I feel so bad.
Nailed it. You killed it. Kaylee Spaney. It might be Spiny. Yes, it's Spaeny. She's phenomenal. A great thing I love about her, she's not British doing an American accent. That's like my favorite thing these days because it never happens anymore. She's so good. I want to see her in everything. I was just charmed by her all the way through. I was never annoyed when she was weepy. I think the one thing, and this was not a her problem, they should have cut this line. They should have cut this line from the script, but they absolutely should have cut it while editing. Andy, where are you? Just said into the open air to nobody. Are you there? Yeah, thank you. Was terrible. That was 2 seconds that the movie did not need to have filled. I would have just cut that and we could have kept going. That was literally my only problem with her, my only problem moment. God, I loved her.
I really want to interact with what you said. You said specifically that you felt that she was not a Ripley-esque final girl. And the thing that makes that such a powerful, excellent statement in so many, like, I think, you could make a thesis out of that, is that Ripley was written to be a man. Well, she was written genderless and ultimately was cast female. And I would do anything to make out with Tom Skerritt. So I really get it, back then at least. And, everybody forgets there's another fucking woman in Alien, and her name is Lambert, and she sucks. Lambert is the worst character in Alien.
Her trope is the screamer.
And the fact that she had no idea that the chest burster scene was going to happen, so that it's actually her having a panic attack covered in fake blood, and she needed several days to recover. I like Veronica Cartwright. Your contributions to cinema excellence should never have come at the quality of your mental comfort. But thank you for ultimately going on to be very positive on your interactions with this film. And then you think about other films, and you think about Newt and Vasquez from Aliens. I think about how there really aren't a lot of opportunities to think about other women in Because I think maybe the only other woman in Alien 3 is technically Babe, the cow. So yikes. But like Call. Think about Call from Resurrection, or when you think about those incredible shorts like Lorraine from Or, which is one of my favorite, or Zula from Alien Defiance, which is one of the most famous Dark Horse comic series of all time. Wait, hold on. Allie is literally making Alien an even better franchise for me. But y'all, we have to love Lambert because she was forcibly gender reassigned at birth and therefore trans rep. If this is oh, you hate that take. I'm so sorry. I thought you were saying that this was like a positive thing, that like, oh wow, you didn't realize that they were like, I didn't realize that there was a positive attempt to try and do something way back when that was really bad. But no, I hate it then too. Let's everybody hate it all together now.
Hates.
Yay.
I'm just so easy. It's been a long month. It is so weird, but I'm always ready to support my friends. So it's one of those things that like I feel, I hate putting it this way, but like part of why we need more trans writers and trans directors is because we need more trans representation on screen as much as anything, so that these kids that need it can connect and can feel complete. But like non-trans people writing trans people's stories always does come out with a sense of, if you don't speak to someone who can help you understand the experience, you're gonna get it wrong. And especially in a franchise like Alien, where the pseudosexual hyper construct is so complicated in the first fucking place, that we get to a certain level where a franchise like Alien could only, I mean any franchise, but a franchise like Alien could only be brought to like its rightful next step by taking a moment and continuing to reassign and reassess our understanding of the gender components of Alien. It's literally designed on, what if the yonic entity was more powerful than the phallic entity? So this idea of an opportunity to take a creator and put them where they so rightfully belong and make the franchise even better would be a really phenomenal opportunity. So now that I have walked myself out of that, it was a very good walk. I do want to say that everybody should go out and check out all of those amazing shorts, because there are so many amazing other not Ripley final girls. But TK, your point about her not being a Ripley final girl elevates the discussion, because we can't escape Ripley in Alien. So it makes me, sort of say, what was her name? Nomi Rapace? Numi. Okay, I wanted to get her name right, because I know it's not Naomi Rap. Like I just wanted to say it properly.
It probably this is like Tuvalu. Like I'm sure there's other But anyway,
So she is such an incredible performer in Prometheus. Yeah. You can say whatever you want about Prometheus, and there's a lot of negative things about that script. But one thing I don't think that it's fair to say is that anybody on screen gave less than 350%. Those people acted that movie to death in some cases.
Guy Ritchie.
They acted the movie to death. And part of why I bring that up is her being killed off in essentially one of the short films that comes before Covenant is so disappointing, because what she could have done would have been so powerful and so epic that I feel like we are left with, this is the first time in a long time that there is a real chance of seeing the non-Ripley final girl in the next movie.
Yeah, I really did think about that, and that was a twofold thing. One, they set it up nicely in the film. To her, she is such a compelling character and somebody I am so eager to follow. They really lined the steps up right, and this was why I liked that Fede Alvarez and the crew were so confident about no post-credit sequence, because we used to just make films like this where you ended the film with the information you needed to say, obviously, the alien will come back. The that's how so many, that you always come back. It's the trope, and that's how sequels happen. We never needed to have a sequence at the end to convince you there could be more. And it's so silly in Marvel movies, because of course there's going to be more. But yeah, I mean it. What?
And I think if anything, the defense of it in Marvel movies is
Now it's just it's the
it's
tradition.
serialized.
Yeah.
It's what makes it an interconnected universe.
Yeah.
But for this, especially with how many stories there are established in the Alien universe, like we know it's all in the same galaxy. It's like I said at the beginning, we know it's one galaxy where these beasts exist and continue to terrorize up and down. We've gotten enough information that we don't need them to try and make it this kind of super serialized thing.
Yes.
And part of where I think we wind up in a weird circle with Alien is that there have been so many uneven films for so long that we needed a chance to kind of take a breather. We needed a chance to reset our internal Alien barometer. And now that we've come back with this new movie with a new feel, a new look, it's very new Coke. But like one of the things that I really liked about it is we're in an era where so many of these midquels kind of erase everything around them. I'm ready to do it. Kevo, can you get up those images of all of the covers? Because I'm ready to do it. I'm ready. I want to start saying what blew my mind. When you're talking about Romulus, obviously Bishop as Rook is a pretty big deal. It's a pretty major part of the film. But there were call outs to every Alien movie that I caught. And I would love to just sort of like talk as a group about some of those beautiful call outs because they really enhanced the understanding of how this is part of the same cohesive universe. Number one, making the black dye the goo of life.
And then
Prometheus.
the horrible engineer baby. Yeah.
Oh my God, giving it an engineer's face when we already have engineer in us. So brilliant. What a beautiful touch point.
We're coming back to that, but I want to go. So starting with the black goo, yes.
And then, of course, the engineer face. And the idea that this goo was created to create better life.
Yeah.
This whole idea. Also, I just want to say I'm not a big David fan. David stresses me out pretty hard.
I love David more because of this movie. But now we have moved into like needing a branch franchise about racism and synths. You could kind of let it go with Prometheus because again, it's Ridley Scott and there's so much. I think the big thing is he's a fantastic actor and he was acting this film today. He really was working hard. Absolute wrong choice for this film. Just completely could not have been a more wrong choice for this film. But we do really start to move into this zone of, are we so terrible that we literally created a new type of human and then treat it just like absolute shit to the point that they go crazy and have these existential crises? And there was so much happening in Prometheus and then in Covenant that I just thought, I can't do this here. And yet Fede Alvarez again managed to, with so much less effort and time dedicated to it and focus and weird dialogue and strange moments, he didn't do any of that stuff. He managed to really pull from David's legacy with Andy. And now I mean, like there are theories about how the Blade Runner universe is also the Alien universe. And so their replicants are actually synths. I maybe would love to like buy that out or just do something because I now almost care about synths as much, if not more, than aliens and figuring that all out.
And I want to really jump on to something you said there, that there's a possibility that Blade Runner and the Alien universes are connected. And I just want to say, no, go home, Ridley Scott, no. And so the other thing that does really ask us to think about is the nature of what Alien was always trying to do versus what Alien did. We think about films and we think about their intent and their purpose. And I just want to say, nobody thinks that Francis Ford Coppola is a bigger idiot than me. I'm kidding. I'm sure he's got an ex-wife somewhere that hates him more. But I do think that he is one of those directors that like everybody... like, there's people who think that about me. There are people that like, why do people cock worship this guy? And like, I feel that way about other people too. Don't worry about it. And Francis Ford Coppola, you're on my list. Nick Cage, you are not. And so before Megalopolis, everybody was so excited about Megalopolis. And then Megalopolis debuted to what we will call bad reviews. And so now, before the Megalopolis trailer was just the words The Godfather, and then a bunch of negative reviews of The Godfather from 1972. And then it was just Apocalypse Now and a bunch of negative reviews of Apocalypse Now. And then it was 1992's Bram Stoker's Dracula. Copes, what were you thinking? And it said a bunch of negative reviews for that. And then it said, one director has always had the foremind to think about tomorrow's movies. And then it cuts to the same trailer for Megalopolis that still looks mega ridiculous. And I'm making that statement because, like, one of the things that we keep seeing is movies try to get bigger and bigger and try to outthink the film, try to outthink the idea. But one of the things that I really thought was cool was that this movie sought to be very small. Really, it was a bunch of poor miners, which in the grand scheme of Weyland-Yutani, what does that matter? And it was a tiny ship that the ship lifting off was one of the most beautiful things I've ever seen. I don't know. I'm sorry. I did not mean to get so distracted, but I could talk about these movies all day.
Well, go, Kevo.
You heard that trailer is in trouble because the quotes they pulled were faked, though, right?
Oh, God.
That's the update.
But that tracks. That fully
all
tracks.
All those reviewers, like, they misquoted Ebert. People who are still alive are mad. Yeah, crazy.
I also just want to say real quick, hey, Timescales, so much excitement that you're here. Super excited. Ali Galactic still hanging out. Hey, Cody Hodges, glad to have you here. And Timescales, they can't trademark Romulus because Remus and Romulus, it's like trying to trademark Jesus. Yeah. You can only trademark so many gods.
Or the year 1989.
Looking at you, T-Swizz.
Yeah, the smallness of the film was something that really came up for me immediately. It is Jackson's landing the colony planet, and then the action is in orbit of the planet. They're right there. They don't go. It's so funny. They do the whole launch sequence to get off planet, and you're thinking, then we're going to go into space and travel for a while. Like things that we've seen in alien movies. They literally just go straight up, and then they're there. They're at their destination, and we barely go further than that the entire film. Technically, Romulus, the space station, the Renaissance space station, which is two halves, Romulus and Remus, actually looks pretty huge. But we never do that. We never do the expansiveness
I'm telling you, all perspective, online inches.
Yes, very much so. But it was that it managed to feel really claustrophobic and also intimate, and a lot of small things that actually, to me, in its own way, felt like kind of a reference to alien movies, because they all take place in very tight quarters, and you're locked in with this thing. And nowadays we make blockbusters, we make huge movies. Prometheus and Covenant, those were, I mean, like, the scene that everybody makes fun of is the enormous circle rolling at Charlize, who has nothing but space to run around from.
Yeah.
So right, exactly. So, like, it is just space on top of space on top of space. And this really seemed to say, like, no, at the core, these films are about lack of space. And yes, I got you. I'm ready to go.
And the way it also plays as a metaphor for being caged, which is something that is a recurring theme throughout.
Right.
Yeah.
And I want to roll that into my discussion on Covenant for a moment. Also, Timescales asks, is this just setting up a next sequel? I don't think we're going to get a sequel. I think this is going to be a brilliant one and done. We never got Rogue 2 from Star Wars either, though this Andor show is very sleepy.
They could do more with this character or from threads that were in this film, but no, this is not a movie that was just meant to be setting up more sequels. It's one of the things that we really are praising about it as a film, is its truly self-contained nature while still fitting into the universe.
I mean, they've been doing this thing of, you know, like, Covenant is not called Prometheus 2. It is much more sequel-y. But
Thank Marvel.
Timescales, I think we will get a follow-up film that may, or I mean, what will be interesting to see is, does it follow this 10 years in the future, 100 years in the future, or is it something entirely different? I think what really we also have to account for is Alien Earth, the TV show. And once we've done those things, I think we'll know where we stand. But financially, this is crushing it at the box office.
Like alien movies aren't supposed to anymore. Like,
Yeah.
this is making stupid money. This is just dick pig money.
Yeah. So I do think that there will be, whether ill-advised or not, an attempt to recreate the success. And personally, I keep saying Fede Alvarez because his name is all over it, but of course it is the entire crew. I'm happy to put this crew back on a film. I think it would be a huge mistake to let Ridley Scott anywhere near it again, except in the producerial credit that you get.
I just want to say, Cody Hodges, the Xeno from Prometheus was not brought up in Romulus directly, but instead it led to more conversation.
Yeah,
like that went somewhere next.
The existence of it is important to events in Romulus, but in typical Alien fashion, nobody knows what they don't know and what else happened. So unless you were there and survived the slaughter or somehow, and like I would so love an Alien film where somebody like gets, for some reason, has like the book or the oral history of all the collected events where there's only one survivor that somehow managed to get it down, and just one person somehow knows, about the Deacon, about the giant trilobite, about the offspring, about the sweet baby from Resurrection.
Now, I want to talk about how you said that if there was another movie, it might not be exactly the same thing. If this crew did another film, it might not be the same project. And that's actually how I feel about Alien Covenant coming from Prometheus. When we talk about things that are good and things that are bad, like, we all love a record that's truly terrible, but like you can hear the threads of the brilliant record that got lost. When I put on Prometheus, it's like seeing the worst version of my favorite record. Watching Prometheus is like reading Fitzgerald's Chamalco, and like you can see where the Algonquin threads that will come on to form Gatsby are being woven together in the tapestry. But like at that moment, it's just not there. And so like when I watch Prometheus, I can see the better movie that's coming next. Covenant is not that fucking movie. Covenant is a cheap horror movie. And one of the things that Covenant did wrong was that it always tried to copy Alien. Prometheus tried to copy Alien. That's the worst kind of Alien sequel. And what Fede Alvarez did was he said, I have so much love for this universe, I don't need to copy shots. And Ridley Scott is just so impressed with Ridley Scott's early work, and he should be, because he went on to inspire years of films, But it's unfortunate that means this man with all the access is continuing to do those same ideas. Covenant had very little to offer me that excited me. The one thing I truly liked from Covenant was this nearly NBC's Hannibal-esque like library of experiments. David's collection was almost like stepping into Grant Morrison's MoMA, and like you could see where it was really asking you to suspend like the understanding of how this could even fit in this world. This archive should be it's perverse to this universe, knowing what it leads to. These rows of face huggers that were treated as nothing in this film was one of the greatest shocks of my film life, and it made so much of Covenant feel so much more valid with its reference.
See, the thing for me that I felt shared a thread between Covenant and Romulus, and the thing that I always think of for Alien Covenant is more them being chased in the field and them their ship breaking down. It to me evokes a sense of like prairie Oregon Trail horror that there is to Alien at times. Like this, we're trying to forge our way to a better life. And that's
and they're colonizers. Like they're nowhere near resources if things go wrong, which they're going to, because this is the film.
And so I think that's something that this one drew from hugely, that I think connected it to Covenant. Do you feel like the rows of experiments, how do you feel it ties in with the bishop on the counter? Is that tied into it as well? Or do you just feel the connection between those rows at the end with David and the visuals that are around the ship?
So I want to say two things. Number one, the way you said "bishop on the counter" sounded exactly like Michael Jackson's "Keep It in the Closet," and I just need you to know that that is the greatest reference you've ever made in your life. Number two, Allie, of course, being the most fascinating correspondent on the show, says everything interesting Covenant is in the margins of the film. I agree, and that's even what I feel about this. The thing that I find this so exciting for is in the margins. Something we saw here is a sense of hive mind duty among the synths that exists among the xenomorphs. So, seeing the way the synths reprogrammed connected, seeing Andy forced to do something evil, and then contrasting that with the idea of, I don't know that any xenomorph actually has a choice in these films. I'm then left to kind of say the things I really liked about how David leaves off in Covenant, and I feel that picks up here, is that David is the synth version of the engineer who dies at the beginning of Prometheus to put the black goo in all of humanity. David becomes the synth that starts the synth obsession with the thing he believes he is in many ways created. In that way, David is Ridley Scott, obsessed with his own new thing.
Well,
of course,
I love that read.
He of course would cast Michael Fassbender and his Fassbender as himself.
Yeah. No, I love that read, and I think it still kind of tracks with my just like, there's something so fascinating going on with the synths. And the reason I feel like there's definitely going to be another Alien film, which just, of course, there is no matter what, like that's, but the thing we have not seen yet, the thing I thought we were getting here, because I maybe don't love how we got what we got instead, and we'll talk about it later, but I thought we were getting our first synth alien hybrid. And I'm still waiting for that. There's so many times where they talk about the xenomorphs as biotechnology.
Yes.
And we really, one of the things I have always loved about the Alien franchise is how organic and wet the synths are. And I'm ready for that. And I think we're close.
Ooh, and to jump back real quick, for a Prometheus thing, the whole weird, creepy alien baby connection thing, which is to say, we keep seeing these evolutions of what a xenomorph can become. Yeah. So I really, really see where that is something that is kind of inevitable.
Yeah, exactly. And it's really wild because we have had a version of Ally Galactic says, I've never considered that synth alien. I need this. Holy shit. Yeah, exactly. I need it. I want it. It was wild that what we got was a different spin on an alien human hybrid. Versus what we got in Alien Resurrection, which obviously we came about these things in very different ways, so it makes sense that they would be so different. But this is Fede Alvarez doing all Alien movies in one Alien movie. There was so much high-minded, good intention when Jean Genet was doing Alien Resurrection, and he had come off of stuff like City of Lost Children. He has that sort of post-Geigerian aesthetic. He's somebody also who does a lot of like mechanics, but everything's wet. he was not a bad person to have in mind for doing that film. The fact that it didn't work out is a lot of different things, but Fede Alvarez really bought back the idea of an alien human hybrid. One, just by doing it better. It was just a better creature. It was less silly. It was less adorable. But then he also did the really important reference work of making it look like an engineer, like really pulling that idea that they encoded our idea. What we are is what they wrote from themselves. We are descended from them. We have them inside us. And so when you take the other thing that they made and fuse them together, it's going to look a lot more like them than it is like us. And I just love that we saw that, and we got the full experience of that, even though we have that one little moment that fucks everything up for Rain, where she sees the baby in the pod and it looks like a cute little baby that just has some little black veins, and she's like, no, maybe I'm gonna save this thing, and then it's just a horrifying monster. I don't know, I was blown away.
And I just want to give a quick shout out in our comment section. Kevo, would you mind flipping back to the timeline image?
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Cody says, where does this take place in the timeline? This takes place just after Alien Isolation. Alien takes place in 2122. 15 years later, Amanda goes looking for her mother in 2137. Romulus takes place 5 years after that in 2142. I just really want to say, Fede Alvarez, respecting the canon so much, putting this safely away from Isolation, the most beloved non-film moment in all of Alien, is a real knowing your shit. That is like recognizing Oswald the Lucky Rabbit on sight, and I'm quite impressed. I want to build on what you're saying, TK, because I want to move the conversation forward to the references to Alien. Sure, there's a trillion, but what I really want to say is that I made a comment a few minutes ago about the thing that made Ridley Scott's later Alien work maybe not measure up quite as well as his need to copy his own trope formula. However, the consolation, the contrast, the thing that maybe makes it better is where Fede Alvarez chose to do that was with the nearly operatic structure. Now, I saw The Crow last night. I went on a date yesterday and I saw The Crow, and that was the date was better. And it was a silly movie, and they tried to use opera in a way that, not smart. Anytime I see anybody conduct like this, I'm bored. But the actual opera of using what I'm going to call fifth act Hail Mary, you think Ripley is safe, and then you get my all-time favorite song in the history of music. You are my lucky star. My favorite piece of music.
Singing in this one.
But we get this beautiful moment, this incredible arcing tribute to that, with our main character trying to survive against an unbelievable adversary in unimaginable conditions, down to the beauty, the matching perfection of the spacesuit. It's sort of like when they found the other Van Gogh self-portrait in blue and they flew it out to the Met. Like, it was that level of what a perfect balanced spacesuit. And so I don't know, Alien is it's my favorite thing in the universe. I could talk about this all day. This was such an incredible film. I guess this must have been how heretics felt about the King James version of the Bible. Oh, it's just new and cool and different. And that is how I really feel about this. Did anybody else think that there was anything other than and I don't mean it like they're pedestrian, but I mean it like they are a little bit more clear homages, anything beyond the obvious tributes to Alien?
I was just reading about, I'm not equipped to get into the references, but they do apparently have everything lined up to establish that Ripley's pod was on the station prior to the crew arriving. They're not
messing with the audiobook either, because the audiobook needs that to happen.
Yeah. So like they were really, I don't know, they were firing on all cylinders. I think I got mine, like, again, I really do think the creature, which is referred to now as the Offspring online, which is very difficult for me to work with because every time it happens, I just go,
Oh, he's pretty fly for a white guy.
thank you.
Well, think about it. He's very white.
He's
Very, very
he's
white.
very white. So the fact that the Offspring really is kind of a better buy-in to the human alien hybrid is pretty special. Just because, I don't know, I think it was such an idea when I remember seeing it in Resurrection, and it's just one of those moments where, like, I am someone who often knows that my immediate reaction can be a bad taste reaction. Like, I can like things that I know are really bad. And that was even a moment where I was like, I am enjoying this, but I can tell that it's not good. And so they figured out a way to really buy that idea back and do something entirely different.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the entire difference of this film from the previous film is the first film is they are being hunted, and this film they are trying to escape. And I think it has to do with a reference to the sense of where culture is at the time. In the 70s, everybody felt like they were being hunted down. You know, it was a very, hey, wait, what's that sound kind of situation. And now we all just sort of feel like we will never get out of what we've trapped ourselves in. And, you know, down to Rain is enlisted essentially in Wei-Yu. She, I don't know. I'm the only person in the entire world who just thinks like if my entire wardrobe said Wayland Yutani on it, I would look perfect. But I would never want to work for them. I was trying to refer to the people who are trying to buy Paramount earlier at dinner, and I called them Skynet. So I am not exactly the most pro-corporate person on the planet, says the guy with Disney shares. But I am definitely aware of where the other thing this movie remembered to do is make not synths, Wayland Yutani the bad guy. The bad guy isn't synthetic life. Synthetic life is being programmed against its own best interests by a company that has all of the cards, much the same way generations are pitted against each other in wars. The thing to remember is that Wayland Yutani is the bad guy, and they're able to transmit that idea like a virus. So it's almost closer to 12 Monkeys than 7. And in the first movie, it's a little bit more like 7. And I really thought that one of the things that this movie did that it asked me to do was it asked me to remember what makes every version of the Doctor different. It asked me to remember what makes every Lego set different. You're still using the same pieces and building the same thing, but what you get from it is a totally different, beautiful experience. And this was all of the same pieces of excellence, but the way they assembled the puzzle was just truly beautiful here.
And, you know, just not to oversell it too much, but everything about the aesthetic that they were able to make feel natural with the original, even by today's filmmaking standards, from the designs of the ships to the score, was really brilliantly evocative of 70s sci-fi in that subtle way that Alien had nailed it. You know, so much of it, it was really the tone. And you know, it's not to say that there is anything against trying to branch out and do new stories. And I really admire the ways in which Prometheus and Covenant were trying to do bold new things. But there's this familiarity of this thing that we've known for so much of our lives. And this is the first time that I feel like something has gotten that aesthetic correct, because like all the computers in Prometheus are all sleek and holograms, and I get it, they're the rich people, but we are used to seeing these dated systems from the 1979.
Yeah, the cast of Alien would look at the set of Nick Arcade and say, this is the future. We're safe now.
Yeah.
I mean, like, it's even, look at their shoes in this photo. And there's a moment where they really focus on Rain's shoes because they are period appropriate for being a contemporary of the crew of the original Alien. There's so much stuff like that. I also really felt, you know, nothing about this franchise would exist without Geiger's aesthetic and without Geiger's artistic contributions. And where they go from there just kind of changes the world. It changes nerd culture. It changes goth culture.
Turns out we owe everything to opium.
Truly, thank you. I mean, like, I think about it all the time. But it getting Geigerian can be a little bit of a crutch. And it is, we have seen so many permutations of it, and we've seen it suffuse horror aesthetics, just kind of any sort of dark, disturbing aesthetic. And I love that. I mean, he's the godfather of this vision. That's fantastic. But it was a thing that I was really curious about how this film was going to address. And again, it is that knowing your roots, always paying homage. These look like the original aliens. These look like the xenomorphs. They look like they're supposed to. And you have, go ahead.
Well, if you don't understand that there is like a literal difference, xenomorph to xenomorph, film to film, and that this is so clearly purposefully meant to look like the earliest iteration, like they went out of their way to create a visual context.
Right. And it does, it pulls every reference it needs to without feeling like, and this again, I keep going back to Resurrection because it's the one I'm most familiar with, but so much of Resurrection really just overdoes it on the Geiger, and I get why. Again, that's a Genet thing. It's not. It's the choice that was made, but I don't think it helped the film. Here, they knew what their references were, but they never let that aesthetic overpower everything else they had to do and the other aesthetics that had to be in play as well. They figured out how to harmonize all of it, and it just worked so beautifully. I think one of the greatest examples of that is the free-floating acid in the anti-gravity moment of the ship. It is just so much ship aesthetic, so much of that the 70s machine aesthetic mixed with the Geiger wet, biomechanical aesthetic.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that I was definitely thinking about throughout this entire film was how much I am being asked to allow the movie to give me an understanding, right? You were saying earlier about how this movie pays tribute to so many things without trying to be all of them directly. And I'm thinking about how, like, when I was, 16 years old, I was like, oh, I want to be Rob Halford. I want to be a hot gay dude in leather and be aggressive. And then I found out that Rob Halford was purposefully, I don't want to say copying, but I mean, he was literally openly dressing as Tom of Finland. And so, now I joke that I am Nico of Parlin, and like, it's a good time. But like, this movie didn't joke, it didn't borrow, it assimilated. And I think about a person who is the best example of musical assimilation, maybe of the last 50 years. Janelle Monáe was able to craft an entire album that sounded like Michael Jackson, Prince, and Beyonce. But every single song sounded exclusively and explicitly and uniquely like Janelle Monáe. None of it was copying, none of it was stealing. And all of it sounded like a tribute. And that's what I got from this film, down to the thing that shocked me that I got from Aliens was those catacombs. Those catacombs are so unique to Alien. And when you think about it, actually, structural hallway container vessels are a hallmark of James Cameron, whether it's The Abyss, Titanic, Aliens, Terminator 2, and its love of modes of travel as a sense of story conveyance. James Cameron is physically obsessed with modes of travel and hallways as a storyteller. So taking the opportunity to connect with that physical membranism, that biological hallway tunnel, I personally felt like Fede Alvarez was designing, as Kevo pointed out, the greatest theme park attraction I have ever seen in my life. He really understood. I mean, it's so silly. Very rarely do I hope that a creator hears what we've said about them. But I hope that this creator hears that as a guy who wants to do the exact same things he's accomplished, I am only glad that if I couldn't do it, somebody with a vision greater than my own created a movie I will never forget. Like literally, maybe my favorite movie the last couple of years. Were there any Aliens moments for you? Do you have a response to that? Talk to me, TK.
I mean, my response is it's really high up there for me too. It's I really just thought this was a fantastic movie, and I love that perspective that this is kind of the distillation of the Alien universe experience in a way that, yeah, it does feel like what you want from a theme park. As Ali Galactic says, it's literally Xenomorph Haunted House. That is the power of pulling properly from your references while building your own thing, while having the confidence and the strength of creative character to put your own stamp and to mold together. I mean, it is to keep the Lego metaphor up. It's not just that, you know, it's all bricks, but it's different sets. It's also the creator. It's the person that puts the bricks together. As we've seen from our many watches of Lego Masters, which I'm hoping we're getting another one soon so we can cover it on the show.
We should be.
But yeah, I mean, it really was all in all. I mean, it's also the thing you said about like this made me so excited to be at the movies. I've gone to the movies since I started doing the show. I go to the movies for the show, and a lot of times I like the movie, but like I'm not super stoked. You know, it's time out of the day, figuring it out. Even this, like getting to the theater, I was supposed to go Thursday, and then stuff came up with work, and then it was Friday, and then stuff came up with work. And I was like, okay, I have to go today, but it's going to get in the way of some other stuff. As soon as the movie started, I was one with the seat and one with the screen and like living. And we've covered some stuff this year. I would say, honestly, Deadpool didn't make me feel that way. Wolverine Deadpool was fantastic, but I was not as much of a theater goer for Wolverine and Deadpool and Wolverine as I was for this film. Like this really harkened back to the day where you loved to be in that fucking theater. So that's kind of my last word.
I really do get that, because as much as I might have enjoyed Deadpool and Wolverine more on one level,
yeah,
I could have just as easily watched that on Disney Plus.
Yeah.
I really get what you mean about, you know, and that goes back to what we were saying before as well, with it's the aesthetic that it really captured that I think is amazing. Did you have some? Okay, I'll go. For me, I feel like the biggest thread from Aliens that Romulus pulled was I really appreciated all of the portrayal of Weyland-Yutani. You know, I think Prometheus fell into a trap that was set by Alien vs. Predator, where it really focused on Weyland. And so it became very personalized. And I think the idea of Weyland-Yutani, or Weyu, as a company instead, and the things that it does to people, and really giving us a further examination of the things that it does to people, like all the stuff on the mining colony. That really echoed with me in terms of Aliens and, you know, the concept of that colony and what happened.
And it's in that same idea that when we're talking about the timeline, Kevo, that beautiful timeline image that you made, would you mind pulling it back up for a moment?
Yeah.
When you think about the timeline of Alien as a universe, you might not realize that Aliens is treated in the same year as Alien 3, because Ripley crash lands very quickly. So when we move to Alien 3, there's not a whole lot of room for the entire universe to expand. One of the things that Alien 3 was then forced to do was come up with a story that was not told in Aliens. Aliens told the story of the idea of suburban expansion, sort of like the, you know, white suburban manifesto destiny of the United States in the 80s. And yet Alien 3 was trying to tell the sort of like 1992 Rodney King, can't we all just get along of it. And it was a much harder story to tell, certainly by people who were not prepared to tell the story, though they had the visuals down. That means that Alien 3 only had the world around it to change, not the actual film universe to advance. In that same regard, though, it was not as far a jump as perhaps 1979 to 1986 was. For that reason, the aliens and the xenomorphs themselves did not evolve much further than moving their host bodies. Seeing aliens manifest through animals in Alien 3 is, I think, the main tie that you can make back to this here on a comic thread, in the minutes of Alien Romulus, where it is very clearly trying to harken back to that idea, whether it's the dog or the cow, whether you saw the original cut, the theatrical, or the producer's cut. You have seen some version of Alien 3 where there is a massive focus on the fact that alien DNA does not only manifest in human beings. Oh, and the rat in this movie. That's what I was getting at. Sorry, rats.
I love it. I don't have much of a response. The only thing I've now just been thinking about the fact that we did meet a Wayland. We've never met a Yutani.
That is not correct. If you've ever seen Alien v Predator Resurrection, at the end of the film, we meet Ms. Yutani.
Okay. Well, fair.
Which it's not canon. It's not canon at all. Which is why I was like snarking about it.
I know.
Like,
I
you're
fully,
incorrect.
believe me, I got the joke. But we need who's like. We need to meet a Yutani.
I agree. I think that one of the things is Weyland Yutani is the central villains of the entire film franchise. Whether or not you think that the aliens are the bad guys, the synths are the bad guys, or humanity itself is the bad guys, the idea that
actually capitalism.
Yeah, there's this idea that all three of them intersect in this company that is actually funded by the idea of capitalism will save the universe. And what it will not do is take care of these people.
Also really fantastic that they got that reference from Rook about how if they did this, they would be completing Peter Weyland's legacy, which is, of course, immortality. Like, he was the whole time he was just trying to get the black goo so he could figure out how to live forever.
Which ultimately does not really add a whole lot to the bigger picture of the universe. I feel like we wind up feeling maybe shortchanged from everything we were going to get from Weyland, especially when you think about Resurrection. Resurrection was a film that was so eager to explore the human xenomorph experience, and yet all that Peter Weyland was really interested in was eternal life. When you think about a villain who is seeking eternal life versus a villain who is seeking godhood, they're very different. Peter Weyland winds up feeling like a very small element of a bigger picture, and that's the scariest thing that Ridley Scott could come up with as the bad guy of Prometheus. I think is ultimately why not running to the side seems like it might have been the most powerful thought in that universe.
I only beg to differ insofar as that is frequently how history tends to function. And, you look at the gap between Prometheus and Alien Resurrection, and our galaxy is still suffering the consequences of Weyland's quest for his own vanity. I feel like that's one of those classic sci-fi lessons that they're trying to tell. I even agree that it makes him seem so small in the grand scale. But I think that's part of what makes it so horrific, that this one person's small actions can have so far-reaching consequences.
Especially because they're the same sort of actions that we see taken by the engineer. The engineer believes that all he is doing is evolving humanity. All he thinks he's doing in Prometheus is giving the gift of life to a planet. And ultimately, he is putting into motion the set of events that will give us xenomorphs. So he believes all he's doing is giving a gift to a people. And ultimately, he's destroying reality in some ways. And that really winds up being the question, not of just Alien Resurrection versus Prometheus, but even the idea of what is the Nostromo doing, exploring with Bishop looking to take the alien home. What experience does the Weyland-Yutani Company have in Ridley Scott's original idea? Of course, well, in Walter Hill's original idea. Sorry about it. And Steve O'Bannon, yes, their original ideas for Star Beast. What were those mechanisms? What were those ideas that what we get is so totally different? And then when you recontextualize those new parts in, when you say to yourself, it's not just a company thinking that's a perfect weapon in the era of Vietnam. When you say to yourself, we are now living in the era of designer genes. What does it mean when a company sees a perfect biological weapon? And how does it make us view the original work differently? Okay, well then let's go to the next movie. I broke everybody. Yikes. I'm kidding.
I just went. It's TK's turn.
Well,
I got nothing. I mean, I agree with everything you're saying. I'm definitely still stuck on Yutani, and now my pitch is like we go from Peter Weyland, this small man who the only thing he can dream of is keeping himself alive forever, to maybe Yutani is the person that wants to be God, is the person that really has a bigger vision that can actually, because like the whole, there's so much of this that is mankind's hubris. But I don't ever actually think, like, Weyland-Yutani is awful and capitalism is awful, but, like, I don't think mankind ever really gets super hubristic in these films. And maybe we need to, like, really up that a few ranks to continue this franchise into a new and interesting place.
I love it. We've been talking for an hour and 20 minutes about this incredible franchise, this incredible film. I know we need to go back and grab Prey because we've talked about Predator, Predator 2, Predators, The Predator. I think technically we've ever talked about Joss Whedon. That's a different kind of Predator. So I would love to know everybody's ultimate opinion on Alien Romulus, how it fits into the bigger picture, how you feel about the universe. And that includes all of our amazing commentators, whether it is Forsaken Nomad, Tasty Cakes, Ali, Peak Jonah, Timescales, of course, everybody who has been weighing in all night. Hold on, I'm scrolling up to see who else there is. We just have so many fans. Cody Hughes, putting big thanks out to Tasty Cake and everybody. So tell me, final thoughts, Romulus, how you feeling and where you going? TK, you're first because you're right below me.
Okay. Final thoughts. I can't even compress everything I said into the final thoughts. I was so pleased with this film. Here's how pleased I was with it. I actually think there's a lot of flaws with this film. There was a bunch of stuff that was worth noting didn't work, and I talked about this before. Like, I wouldn't even maybe necessarily call them flaws, but it was things where I was just like, maybe that wasn't the right decision. There was a bunch of stuff like that. There's actually so much leeway in great filmmaking to not make the right choice and to make a choice where your audience can even maybe see there's a better call. If you can find those things in this film, go look at Prometheus as an example where so many choices were made that were absolutely the wrong call, and it makes the film worse, and it can't save the film. And it is not just the stupid not running to the left, but it is the thinking that gets us there. And I think it really is, the pointing to things like that Nico's pointed out, that just like by the time we get there, Weyland-Yutani is not that, or Peter Weyland is not that impressive a thing to come out of there. And also, guy, act better. Or maybe just hire an old man. Don't put Guy in that much makeup. I don't know.
That beautiful man that was the lead of this film. There was only one male lead in this movie, and he was so beautiful. Put him in everything. He was very handsome.
I feel like he's probably too young for me, but he's a very, very handsome boy.
26.
Is he? Okay, that's not terrible.
Yeah, and you serve Big Daddy energy. You got this.
I just, I don't. They all looked like children to me. It was very disturbing. Because again, they're not that much older than the original Nostromo crew. Loved this film. I'm so excited about it again. I was just excited to be a moviegoer, and I really can't remember the last time I felt that. So thank you guys for being such Alien stans and enthusiasts, because I don't know I would have gone to this if I was not part of this family and part of this channel. I was so burned by Prometheus. I really was just like, yeah, but I don't think so. I don't think you'd fool me once, which was Alien Resurrection, fool me twice. Anyway, I've been unfooled. I've reset the fooling calendar. I might give the next one a try, and we'll go from there. If you want to talk more about that with me, you just go to TK Elemental on any social, and I will talk to you all day long. Kevo?
Yeah, we're really positive on this movie overall, which is nice. There had been some fear. I am somebody who is staunchly in favor of remakes, reboots, requels, all of those things, because we've been doing stuff like that for as long as we have been telling stories. Really, it's just a matter of whether or not you tell a good one. And this hits so many great notes that are what makes Alien that the last two were missing. Like I said, they were fun experiments, and I didn't hate them because I want to be nice. There were good things about them, but I feel like this was, like you said, there were flaws for sure, but this is something where I think the things it got right so infinitely outweighed anything that is just making movies is hard. No movie is perfect, and we need to be a little bit more chill about that too. I think too many people are looking too readily to be angry about stuff. This was one of those things that had been, I think at certain points, it was being called woke because they were young and there were people of color. I don't think this was excessively woke or unwoke or anything, and so I think it really accomplished what an Alien movie sets out to do in the long run. There are messages, but they're mostly about things that affect so many of us on this planet, like economics and capitalism and, just fear of our own safety and isolation. And I think this did a really amazing job of tying together all of the classic themes. And I am looking forward to having the coverage that Nico and I did, which we call Alien Legacy. About 5 years back, we covered the franchise on HTML, the Husbands Talking More or Less podcast. And so we're going to be posting that coverage, so check that out as well. And in the meantime, you can check me out over on the socials at Kevo Really. That's KEVOREALLY. And boss man up there, rap about it. How did you feel about this? You are the Alien King. So what does your heart say? Your acid heart?
I loved it. Honestly, it's complicated because I have a hard time picking what I like more, Alien or Aliens, but I know that my second place was previously Prometheus, not because it was a great movie, but because I loved all of the ideas in it, no matter how badly they were executed. Ultimately, I feel like I can say Romulus is a really strong second place. It's at least third place. I really had a great time. The score was incredibly well considered. The score was brilliant. The first group shot involves a person in an electric wheelchair, so there's even incredible visibility. I wouldn't call it representation because the person doesn't speak, but it's certainly visibility, and I'm grateful for that. While definitely Andy is a synth creature who is not operating to his maximum expectation, there is definitely something for those of us who have panic disorder and wind up reacting a little roughly in charged situations, and it definitely made me feel a little viewed. I'm such a big fan that it is definitely a movie that I am proud to say I'm going to see multiple times in theaters. All said and done, I'm so grateful to this team for taking the opportunity to cover this with me. I love Alien. I love it as a franchise and a universe, and just getting to be part of this coverage is super exciting. That all said, if you want to check out our next coverage tomorrow morning, like 12 hours from now-ish, we're going to be here online again talking Drag Race because we have more than just one interest. It's not just Aliens, it's also Drag Race. And also, I just want to say, Carl Hala, I don't know you, but I love you for saying that people who don't know what they're talking about say Alien is woke now, but it was always woke. So, you know what, Carl, thank you. Thank you for being a voice of reason in an ugly, ugly world. So super cool. That said, I'm Nico Action, Nicoation. You can check my music out at Nico Action Music. That's Nicoation Music. Check me out on YouTube. Check me out on SoundCloud. I mean, I guess you could also check me out other places. But that said, no, I'm kidding. No, yes, I'm not kidding. But that is Nico Action. That is TK Elemental and Kevo Really. We are X's for show, X's for podcast. If you're looking on podcasts, as always, though, do us 3 favors: like, comment, and subscribe. We want to know what you guys are thinking. I want to know what you're thinking so that we can cover your shit. That said, though, oh, Jesus, timescales. What a way to end the episode. Being woke is just common decency and respect, nothing more. And that is how I want to get out of here. Stay safe, be brave, evolve daily, be your best self, and we'll see you tomorrow.